Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel called Zuzanareacts, where I learn all things Bharat. Jo helpena my Slovak Central European point of view. So today I have heard that Maldives, out of all countries, is seeking India's economical help. Like, wait, what? Wait, what? Seriously. Wow. The question of today's video is, should India actually help? Please do let me know. Think about it. I would love to know, even before you jump into today's video, what do you think? If India should or should not help? Please do let me know. But now, before we jump into today's video,
please like this video and click on the subscribe button and turn on the notification. Thank you so much for your support.
Should India help Maldives? That is the question, and we are looking to get an answer to this in today's video. I'm super curious what on earth is happening. Let's hit it.
The Maldives is ranked 173 in the Chavda Index of Geopolitical Hard Power. They have a hard power score of 0. India is ranked 4th, China is ranked 3rd, and Turkey is ranked 20th. And these nations are involved in a tussle for geopolitical influence and to some extent control in India's backyard, the Indian Ocean region. And the Maldives, after this new government has come to power, they have sought to reduce relations with India. They have sought to diminish relations with India to an absolute minimum, and they are wooing China and anti-Indian nations. And now Mr. Mohammed Muizzu, the president of the Maldives, seeks financial assistance from India. He wants debt relief from India. So what should India do? What should India's policy be like? Please subscribe and let's examine what's happening and let's find out what India should do about this. So recently, a new government came to power. President Mohammed Muizzu came to power, and he came to power on an India out plank. His predecessor, President Ibrahim Mohammed Soli, he had an India first attitude and approach to relations with India. It was a very pro-India government, and it was beneficial to the Maldives. Historically, Maldives has always had the greatest of relations with India. The islands were settled by ancient Indians about 3,000 or so years ago, and the culture was much the same, Hinduism, Buddhism. Recently, in recent times, less than 1,000 years, Maldives became an Islamic region, and today it's a separate country. It is a separate country because the British sought to break up the Indian subcontinent into various independent nations. And the British had a presence in the Maldives until the 1970s, a military presence in the Maldives. So there's a lot of external geopolitics at play over here. Historically, it's been so. Previous government, like I said, was pro-India. They had a India first approach. This current government has come to power on an anti-India plank, very strongly anti-India plank. India out was the campaign of Mohammed Muizzu. Now this guy comes to power. His ideology is anti-India. His political campaign, his presidential campaign was all about claiming that his predecessor was not respecting the sovereignty of the Maldives. He had given away Maldives sovereignty to India and so on. So his political campaign was about asking India to respect the sovereignty of the Maldives, and it was about making the Maldives self-reliant. So he won the election, and typically, historically, whenever a new leader comes to power in the Maldives, their first foreign visit is to India. But in the case of Muizzu, his first foreign visit, I believe, was to Turkey, and then it was to the UAE, and then it was to China, India's number one adversary. So it's very clear that he's making a very public attempt to snub India. And the message he wants to convey to the public is that he is succeeding in protecting and upholding the sovereignty of the country, and he's trying to make it more self-reliant and reduce the dependence with India. And this obviously is going to garner the support of a significant section of Maldivian society. Let's say he's going to get support from Islamists, from hardliners, and people with anti-India sentiments, and that sort of thing. Obviously, all of this anti-India approach from Muizzu, it's all about consolidating his position, his political position as the leader of the Maldives. He wants to stay in power because power brings a lot of benefits, right? And he wants to leverage the strategic position, geographical position of the Maldives to extract support from China. And China obviously will be very much more than willing to step into this role that he envisages for them. So that is the deal, and he is going to be in power for the next 5 years. There's been a lot of flip-flops on the Maldives in the past decade and a half, since 2010, 2012 onwards. In 2012, Mr. Nasheed was thrown out of power, and a pro-China government came to power, and they cancelled certain Indian infrastructure development projects and had the Chinese come in and do that. There is a China friendship bridge that connects the airport of the Maldives to the capital city island, this tiny island called Malé. So the Chinese very much want to be involved in this region. They already have a base in the Coco Islands in the Bay of Bengal, north of India's Andaman Nicobar archipelago. And they had in the past tried to woo the Sri Lankans. They built this airport and this port in Hambantota in southern Sri Lanka, which no one uses today because it has no utility. And they essentially trapped Sri Lanka in a debt trap, the Chinese debt trap diplomacy standard practice, which they've done also in Africa. And now they are trying to do the same thing in the Maldives. So Maldives is strategically located. If the Chinese have a presence there, they can spy on India and do various anti-India activities. They can monitor what India's naval activities are like. So it's a very good location to have a presence if you are China vis-a-vis India. And Muizu has inked a strategic defense agreement with the Chinese in which they will receive Chinese aid of kinds, they will receive Chinese weaponry and equipment, they will get training from China. So that is clearly a very anti-India move. And Muizu has gone ahead and bought drones from Turkey. These drones will be used for surveillance of the Maldivian territory, but they can also very much be used to spy on Indian naval activity. And he has asked the Indian military personnel. There are less than 100 Indian military personnel in the Maldives, and they are typically people who are engaged in maintaining equipment and training Maldivian personnel. So India has given 2 or 3 aircraft to the Maldives as a gift, and those aircraft need maintenance. That's what those personnel are for. And India has also given a couple of boats, 2 or 3 boats or ships of some kind. Those also need maintenance and refurbishing and overhauling from time to time. So that's what the Indian personnel are there for. They're not there to occupy the Maldives. But, you can always make it sound like it's a foreign military presence on your soil. So those Indian personnel have already been asked to leave, and India is going to withdraw them all by the 10th of May. So India is going out of the Maldives, right? They are pushing India out. They also launched this vitriolic online campaign against India when the Prime Minister of India, Mr. Modi, visited Lakshadweep. There was a significant backlash from India, and there was a significant downfall in Indian tourists coming to the Maldives. The Maldives government is okay with this. They would like to have fewer Indian tourists, and they want to replace that with Chinese tourists and Turkish tourists. Pakistani tourists obviously won't come because Pakistan has no money, but that's the deal. So this current Maldives government is trying to align with nations like, first of all, China, very much China, but also nations like Turkey and to some extent Pakistan as well. So they want to essentially push India out. They want to replace whatever influence India has with other influence. So reduce relations with India to a minimum, diminish the entire relationship to a barely existing minimal relationship. They want to increase their dependence on China. They want to increase their relationship with China. They perceive that China is really far away. So whatever Chinese presence will be there in the Maldives, it's not going to be that threatening to the Maldives because China is so far away. So increase dependence on China, increase in the relationship with China, make it more significant, give it military dimensions, give it perhaps intelligence dimensions, and so on. The Maldives wants to align with anti-Indian nations like Turkey, like Pakistan, etc. They want to push India out of the tourism market, have fewer tourists from India. They're okay with it as long as more tourists come in from China, and so on. And now they want debt relief from India. So the Maldives owes India about $400 million or so dollars. They were supposed to pay that back by the end of 2023, and they have requested India to waive off the debt or maybe postpone it for later. And they said that India is our number one ally. They're playing the good old words versus actions game. They will take certain actions that will hurt India, but then with words they'll say that you are our number one ally.
Okay, so now I am very curious what you guys have said about helping or not helping, and me, completely uninterested party, just solely on what he's talking about, I would be like, F off. I ain't doing that. Like, F off. But I'm curious what you guys think, and I'm actually curious what he's going to say. I was just like, really? After all of this, you have the nerve? Wow.
Please help us out over here. And this is something you will see all across the Indian subcontinent. You will see this game at play in places like Nepal, where the communists are very anti-India. The communist political parties are pro-China, and they are trying to play this balancing act of bringing China in and pushing India out. You will see that in Bangladesh, where the Bangladesh Nationalist Party is very strongly anti-India. You will see that in Sri Lanka, where the Rajapaksa family played the same old trick, India versus China. So the thing is, every nation has a number of corrupt politicians who will be willing to sell their country. If you're Indian, you know this very well. If you're American, you know this very well. You see this in every nation, not just in the Indian subcontinent. You see it everywhere. You see it in Africa, you see it in Europe, you see it in the Americas, you see it everywhere. All right? And China knows this very well, and China is very much willing to exploit this human tendency that there are lots of politicians who are corrupt and who are willing to sell their country, and that's where they step into the picture. They will, let's say, prop up corrupt dictators in Africa. They'll fill their bank accounts, which actually is peanuts from a national perspective. But you bribe a politician or a dictator, you make sure that that person is well taken care of and stays in power. In exchange, that person will allow you to plunder his entire country's natural resources. So that's the kind of game China plays. And the country suffers, but the politician or the dictator or the ruling dynasty or ruling family gets rich. So that is the playbook that the Chinese employ. And that's what we are seeing at play with the Maldives. So the Maldives are playing this game, this anti-India game. So what should India do? They have asked for debt relief. So we have to understand from India's perspective that in the long terms, the Maldives is important for us. It's in a strategic location. Historically, they are our own people, the same ethnicity and all that. Right now, the Maldivian government is a liability. $400 million is not a big deal. We can waive off the debt if required. We can defer it to a later date if required. We can perhaps negotiate with the government and try to bring about some kind of favorable terms. But it's not a big deal. $400 million from a national perspective is next to nothing. But in the long run, like I said, Maldives is important. It's in a strategically important, vital location for India. And India must, let's say, work with the people of the Maldives to ensure that the right government is brought to power after this government its term is done. So right now the Maldives is a very strongly anti-Indian nation, and the people have voted for this guy. So this sentiment is going to be there for some time at least. And even in the future, if a new government comes to power, there's going to be a certain amount of anti-India sentiment in the Maldives. Perhaps it's a religious thing, perhaps it's something else. It doesn't matter what it is. But in the long run, India must work with the people of the Maldives to ensure that the right kind of government is brought to power. And you may say that it's a very American thing to say, but that's all right. India also needs to start playing this game. So that is the deal. That's the situation. That is the problem India faces in its backyard, the Indian Ocean region, and it's a problem that India needs to find a way to solve. Thank you for watching.
Ay, 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 ay. So basically, he's suggesting for India to meddle in other people's political endeavors, and he's basically saying nothing that's not new for, let's say, the US or whatever other country, but yet still say that so openly out loud. I don't think Americans would ever do that we're going to go and support, pro-American government. They just do. So I'm not too sure about this particular statement, but I would just be very curious to hear your thoughts on, what is the sentiment in India and the approach. I mean, this is like that particular approach. I don't think shows maybe, at least how I'm reading it. I might be totally wrong. Okay, so don't come for me. It's almost in a. Is it though? I don't know. In opposition to maybe like the principles of Hinduism. Am I right there? I might be totally off, but fear kind of, we're all one, everyone's connected, one world is one big family. And there are certain things that you do or you don't do, but I know also we live in this reality. So I would love to know your version of interpretation of that. But I mean, man, they have some nerve after doing all these steps. And obviously I only know this side of the story, so it's not like I'm giving you like some sort of educated point of view. I'm just like sharing what my thoughts are based off of that video. But it does look like it is for India strategically placed. And then the question is India going to be a power in a sense of the US, because every one of you in the comments, you're saying that there is no aspirations to be a superpower, but that's kind of in a way what I'm hearing from Abhijit, because that's kind of how the US is acting. So I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on the entire subject matter. As I said, like, I might be totally completely off. Obviously, I'm not from there. I don't know exactly what is happening, but it's nonetheless very interesting that you have an anti-India campaign and then you come and ask for complete, evaporation of that. But to me, it looks like there is a new battlefield, I guess, because we're here in our part of the world, we're going down. But it feels like the Asian region is really the battlefield of the powers, emerging powers. Not that it's like, yeah, I think emerging powers in a way, in the new geopolitical way of looking at distribution of power around the world. So it looks like a lot is happening in that region. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching this video with me. If you did enjoy, please give a thumbs up, share, like, and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you next one. Until then, please do take care. I'm sending so much love. Bye-bye.